beloved chosen one. Have you ever paused to wonder why your life feels like an endless test, filled with challenges that seem almost custom-made to push you to your limits? Why does it feel like you've been navigating a path filled with rejection, storms, and valleys where others might have crumbled? And yet, somehow, you endure. You rise, stronger, bolder, and more refined. But here's the question: why? Why you? Let me share something remarkable with you. It's because God saw what others couldn't. While the world dismissed you, God crowned you. Not with the kind of crown that fades with time, but with a crown of purpose, authority, and divine favor. The trials you faced weren't meant to strip you of your strength, but to prepare you for the weight of this crown. Doesn't it stir something within you to realize the very hardships you've endured have been part of a divine plan? This crown didn't find you by chance. It didn't stumble upon you accidentally. It sought you out because, in God's infinite wisdom, He always knew it belonged to you. Just as He chose David, a shepherd boy overlooked by everyone else, to be king, He has chosen you for a purpose that only your heart can fulfill. As it says in 1 Samuel 16:7, the Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. If this truth resonates in your spirit, drop a 777 in the comments as a declaration that you are ready to wear the crown God has prepared for you. And to those who've shown their support through super thanks, know that your kindness is a part of this divine journey. Thank you for being vessels of encouragement and light. But here's the real question: what does this crown mean for you? Why does it hold such significance? And how does it connect to the trials you've faced? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover could change the way you see your life forever. Are you ready to uncover the mystery of the crown that has been waiting for you all along? Let's begin. God's chosen ones, the crown found you because God always knew it belonged to you. You see, God doesn't make mistakes. Every moment of your life, every challenge, every victory, and even every setback has been intentionally woven into a divine plan. If you're standing here today, navigating trials and breaking through barriers, it's not a coincidence. Have you ever paused to ask yourself, why me? Why would God choose someone like me, someone others might overlook or underestimate? Let me tell you this: God doesn't choose randomly. He chooses intentionally. He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. And now we're going to uncover this truth. Why does God choose the overlooked? How does He prepare them in silence? And most importantly, why were you the one chosen to lead when others couldn't? You didn't ask for this role, did you? You didn't raise your hand and say, I'll be the one to face this, to carry this responsibility. Yet, here you are. Why? Because God saw something in you that others couldn't see, even something you might not have seen in yourself. Think of Gideon hiding in a winepress, filled with fear and self-doubt, when an angel of the Lord appeared and called him a mighty warrior. Judges 6:12. Gideon didn't see himself as a leader, but God did. Do you see yourself as God sees you? Could it be that your challenges, the rejection you faced, and the doubts you've battled are all part of God's preparation for your destiny? God has a pattern of choosing the unlikely. Here's the thing: God prepares His chosen ones in silence. The years of being unseen, the times you questioned your purpose, and the moments when you felt alone, those weren't wasted. They were seasons of preparation. Remember Joseph, sold into slavery by his own brothers, spending years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. To the outside world, Joseph was forgotten, abandoned. But in God's plan, Joseph was being shaped into a leader who would save an entire nation. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Genesis 50:20. Could it be that your silence, your waiting, is part of a bigger picture that only God can see right now? Now, think about yourself. Have you ever wondered why God allowed you to face certain battles, endure certain pains, or walk certain paths? Could it be that He was molding you into the only person capable of carrying this assignment? Your past doesn't disqualify you, it qualifies you. God doesn't choose perfect people, He chooses willing people. He doesn't look for those who seek glory, He looks for those who seek Him. So, will you embrace the role He has prepared for you? Will you trust that the crown, though heavy, was always meant for you? This is your story, written by the hand of God. It's not a story of coincidence, ambition, or luck. It's a story of divine design, and you are the protagonist. God's ways are not ours. While the world gravitates toward the loudest voices and the boldest ambitions, God searches for something entirely different. He looks for the quiet, humble spirit, the one that doesn't seek power but is prepared to wield it with wisdom. He chooses the ones who lean fully on Him, not on their own strength, knowing they cannot accomplish the task alone. Have you ever wondered why you didn't seek the leadership role you now find yourself in? That wasn't an accident. It was a sign of divine assignment, not human ambition. Your humility became your greatest strength because it made space for God to work through you. Think about Moses, standing barefoot before a burning bush in the wilderness. The weight of his call was overwhelming. He protested, asking, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" Exodus 3:11. Moses felt unqualified, inadequate, and ill-equipped for the mission God was giving him. Can you relate to that feeling? Have you ever looked at your own life and thought, "Who am I to take on this responsibility?" But notice what God said to Moses, "I will be with you." Exodus 3:12. It wasn't about Moses' abilities or confidence, it was about God's promise and power. And that's where your story connects so beautifully. The moments when you've doubted yourself, when you felt unworthy or ill-prepared, those were the very moments God was equipping you. Do you see it now? Your hesitations weren't signs of weakness. They were evidence of your reliance on Him. When you felt unsure, God saw an open heart, one ready to be filled with His wisdom and strength. Look at the story of Esther, a young Jewish woman who never sought the throne but was placed there for such a time as this. Esther 4:14. She didn't volunteer to be a queen, let alone risk her life to save her people. Yet, when the time came, she leaned on God for courage and stepped into her purpose. Have you considered that your life might also have been positioned for such a time as this? That your humility, your hesitations, and your quiet spirit were all part of God's preparation to place you where no one else could stand. Your calling isn't about proving your worth, it's about demonstrating His power. God doesn't need the boldest or the most confident to accomplish His plans. He needs the willing. Your doubts, your questions, and even your fears are reminders that this journey isn't about your strength. It's about His strength working through you. Have you ever felt like Moses, overwhelmed by what's being asked of you? Have you ever wondered why God would call you when others seem more capable? Take heart. It's precisely because of your humility, your reliance on Him, that you were chosen. The path you're walking isn't meant to glorify your abilities. It's meant to reveal His glory through your obedience. Are you ready to embrace that? Are you ready to let God's power move through your life in ways you never imagined? True leadership isn't something that simply arrives. It's something God prepares you for in the quiet, hidden moments of life. Think of David, the young shepherd boy. His journey to kingship didn't begin in a palace or with public recognition. It started in the wilderness, where he fought off lions and bears and spent countless nights under the stars, alone with his thoughts. Do you ever wonder why your path seems so difficult, so unseen? Could it be that, like David, your trials are preparing you for something greater? When Samuel came to anoint the next king of Israel, David wasn't even considered by his own family. He was out tending sheep, overlooked and underestimated. But God's perspective was different. The Lord doesn't look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. Have you ever felt unseen, as though others only noticed your shortcomings? What if God was looking at your heart all along, seeing qualities no one else could see? The trials you've endured, the rejection, the isolation, the questioning of your purpose weren't pointless. They were God's refining fire, shaping you into the leader He knows you can be. Think about the times you've cried out, asking, "Why me?" Those weren't moments of weakness. They were moments of preparation. God uses the humble, the quiet, and the ones who never sought the throne to accomplish His greatest plans. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will lift you up. James 4:10. Can you see now that your humility was never a limitation? It was the very reason God chose you. David's story is a reflection of yours. He didn't chase the crown or seek the spotlight. He was simply faithful in the small things, trusting God in the unseen moments of his life. And when the time was right, God lifted him up. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. He seats them with princes and has them inherit a throne of honor. 1 Samuel 2:8. Have you ever thought that the challenges you faced, every tear, every rejection, were God's way of positioning you for a throne of honor you never imagined? And now, here you are. You didn't ask for this calling, yet it's been placed upon you. The battles you've fought and the fire you've walked through weren't there to break you. They were there to build you. Just as David didn't seek kingship, but was anointed because of his heart, you have been chosen not for your outward qualifications, but for the qualities only God could see. Your story wasn't an accident. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. Do you see how every moment, even the painful ones, was working together for something greater? Chosen ones, you didn't crave authority, but here you stand, ready to step into a divine calling. The world might call it coincidence, but you know it's God's orchestration. Have you considered that your hesitations, your doubts, and even your fears were the proof that you've been chosen? God didn't need you to be perfect. He needed you to be willing. And now, will you embrace this calling? Will you take the throne not for your own glory, but for His? Remember, the throne isn't yours to claim, it's yours to steward. Like David, your rise is not about you. It's about the purpose God has placed on your life. So, are you ready to step forward, trusting that He has already equipped you for the journey ahead? The one who calls you is faithful, and He will do it. 1 Thessalonians 5:24. Are you ready to live out the story He's been writing for you all along? This is your moment. Will you claim it? Beloved chosen ones, think back on your life. How many times have you been the overlooked one, the one underestimated, dismissed, or quietly left in the background? It's painful, isn't it? To be unseen, to wonder if anyone notices your potential. But let me tell you this, those hidden moments were where God was shaping you. He wasn't preparing you in the spotlight, where distractions and applause could cloud your purpose. No, He was working in the shadows, refining your faith and building your character without interference. Do you see it now? One more time, like David, who faced lions and bears in private before he ever stood before Goliath. Your private battles were always preparing you for the moments when your leadership would matter most. Have you ever felt like your struggles were setbacks, obstacles keeping you from where you thought you needed to be? What if they were stepping stones all along? Every rejection you faced wasn't the end. It was God's redirection. Every obstacle wasn't there to stop you, but to train you. You've been in preparation for a throne that you didn't even know was part of your destiny. Leadership, especially when divinely ordained, doesn't wait for you to volunteer. It comes for you. Just as it came for David, it has now come for you. Think about the moment Samuel poured oil over David's head. To everyone else, it seemed like a sudden moment of destiny. But for David, it was the start of a long and difficult journey. Destiny doesn't manifest overnight. David wasn't immediately handed the throne. Instead, he had to wait, fight, and trust God's timing. During those years, he endured betrayal, danger, and doubt. Can you relate? Have you ever felt like your calling was delayed, like you were stuck in a season of waiting? Let David's story remind you, God's timing is perfect. For the vision is yet for an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Habakkuk 2:3. The throne God has for you is not a matter of if, but when. You are the David of today. Like David, you might find yourself standing in places you never expected, facing challenges you never thought you could overcome. Do you feel that power within you? That undeniable assurance that, despite everything, God's hand is on your life. But remember this, your success was never about your strength or ambition. It has always been about the anointing you carry. That anointing, the divine touch of God on your life, breaks barriers, silences doubt, and propels you toward the throne. But the anointing you received from Him remains in you, and you do not need anyone to teach you. 1 John 2:27. Chosen one, here's the truth. You didn't chase this role. It pursued you. Could it be that the struggles you faced were all part of God's intention to elevate you? You didn't fight for the throne because it was always meant to be yours. Long before you understood the weight of leadership, God had already sealed your destiny. Think of Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, rising to become second only to Pharaoh. Like Joseph, you may have faced betrayal, isolation, and trials, but God's plan has remained unshaken. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Genesis 50:20. The throne you stand before now isn't the result of human decisions or chance. It was written into your life's blueprint by God Himself. Can you see how every step of your journey, no matter how difficult, was crafted with divine purpose? Your trials, your victories, and even your heartbreaks were all pieces of His perfect design. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works which God prepared in advance for us to do. Ephesians 2:10. And now the world will see what God has always known. You are chosen, not by human standards, not by merit, but by divine authority. The question isn't whether you're ready. The question is whether you will trust the one who prepared you for this all along. Are you ready to let the anointing on your life speak louder than your doubts? Will you step into your position knowing the throne isn't for your glory, but for His? The throne wasn't an afterthought. It wasn't something you earned. It was always part of your destiny. So, as you step into this role, carry this truth with you. God's chosen don't need to fight for a throne that was always theirs. Every step you've taken has been deliberate, a piece of the intricate plan God has woven for your life. Have you ever wondered why certain moments seemed random, even painful, yet led to where you are today? Consider the story of Esther. a woman who began her life with no power, no influence, an orphan with no claim to greatness. Can you imagine what Esther must have felt as queen? Did she wonder why she was there, if she had what it took, or if she was truly chosen for something greater? And yet, when the fate of her people rested on her shoulders, it became clear God had orchestrated her rise for that exact moment. Have you considered that your journey, like Esther's, has been leading you to such a time as this? And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Esther 4:14. Could it be that every challenge you faced was preparing you for a purpose far beyond your imagination? The trials you've endured were never wasted. Those seasons of rejection, isolation, and uncertainty weren't roadblocks. They were the very paths God used to shape you. Have you ever felt like David, overlooked, waiting, wondering when your purpose would be fulfilled? Like David, anointed as king but sent back to the fields, your journey required waiting. David didn't ascend to the throne immediately. Instead, he spent years in the wilderness, battling lions, bears, and even the rejection of men who didn't see his worth. Do you see how even your pain was part of his plan? What if those moments of waiting were essential? Could it be that your trials were God's way of preparing you to impact others in ways you can't yet see? Look at where you stand now. The rejection you once felt wasn't because you were unworthy. It was God protecting and preparing you. What if every setback you faced was really a divine setup, preparing you for this very moment? Have you ever thought about how He hides His greatest works until the appointed time? Just as David's years in obscurity cultivated his strength and wisdom, your seasons of silence were building something extraordinary within you. Chosen ones, the hardships you've faced were never random. Do you see now that your pain wasn't wasted? That every betrayal, every closed door, and every disappointment was shaping you into the leader God intended you to be? They were designed to align you with the destiny God wrote for you long before you were born. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. The throne you are stepping into was never something that could be earned by ambition. It was ordained by God Himself. Have you considered that the battles you fought weren't just about survival, but about preparation? The enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat. What if the opposition you faced was confirmation that you carry something extraordinary? God's plan is sovereign, and His promises are unshakable. What He has written about your life cannot be erased by anyone. The one who calls you is faithful, and He will do it. 1 Thessalonians 5:24. So, will you embrace your calling, trusting that every trial and triumph was designed to equip you for this throne? Will you step forward, knowing it's not about your strength but His anointing? The time has come for you to step into what was always yours, not for your glory, but for His. Leadership in God's kingdom has never been about power for its own sake. It has always been about purpose. Have you ever wondered why you were placed in this position, why you were chosen for this path? It's not random. Like Esther, who risked her life to save her people, and Joseph, who used his authority to provide during a devastating famine, your throne carries a weight far greater than personal reward. It is not a prize for ambition. It is a mission rooted in divine intention. What does that mean for you? It means you were chosen not just to sit in a place of influence, but to use that influence to fulfill God's will on earth. Think of Esther again. She didn't seek the crown or plot her way into the palace. Yet, when the moment came, she stepped forward with courage, saying, "If I perish, I perish." Esther 4:16. Her bravery wasn't about self-promotion. It was about saving lives. Have you considered what God is calling you to do with the authority and position He has entrusted to you? What purpose might He be unfolding through your story, even now? Every trial you've endured has been a part of your preparation. Every tear, every rejection, and every challenge wasn't wasted. It was leading to this moment of divine fulfillment. Like Joseph, who endured betrayal, false accusations, and imprisonment, you have walked through fire, but none of it was in vain. Joseph himself recognized this, saying, "God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance." Genesis 45:7. Do you see how God has used your trials to position you for something far greater than yourself? The courage, wisdom, and strength you now carry weren't born overnight. They were cultivated through the seasons of struggle you faced. Can you look back and see God's hand in every victory you claimed, even when it didn't feel like a victory at the time? Each step has been preparing you for such a time as this. And now, as you stand in this moment, you are walking in the fulfillment of promises made long before you even realized them. The throne you stand upon was always yours, not because of your strength or accomplishments, but because of His grace. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God. Ephesians 2:8. Do you feel the weight of that grace now? It's not a burden, it's a gift that enables you to lead with humility, purpose, and faith. And this leadership, this calling, is not just for today, it's for the generations who will follow. Your life, your story, is a living testament to God's faithfulness. Imagine how many lives will be inspired by your example. How many people will look at your journey and see the evidence of God's promises fulfilled. The Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in Him. Psalm 37:23. Can you see how your rise is not about you, but about showing others the glory of God? Your throne is not just a position, it's a symbol of His purpose, established long before you even knew it. Are you ready to fully embrace what God has prepared for you, to step into your calling, knowing it's not about personal power, but divine purpose? This is your moment to rise, not for your own glory, but as a testament to His faithfulness. Will you take it? Now, I need you to listen closely. They say the truth will set you free, but have you ever wondered why so few can handle it? For the chosen ones, the truth isn't just a gentle revelation. It's an unfiltered cosmic download that shatters illusions and exposes everything for what it truly is. No sugarcoating, no escape. This is not for the faint of heart, like a story you won't find on YouTube or hear whispered in casual circles. It's the story of a chosen one who escaped the grip of darkness, a satanic cult, and found redemption in the divine. It's raw, unflinching, and the kind of revelation that would make even the forces of darkness tremble. In the path of the chosen, we don't just speak truth, we live it. The opposition, the trials, and the battles you've faced aren't coincidental. They're evidence of the powerful calling you carry. Have you ever noticed how the greatest lights attract the deepest shadows? When you carry a divine calling, it's like a beacon, visible to both those who are drawn to its warmth and those who fear its brilliance. People may have seen glimpses of your potential before you even recognized it yourself, and in their fear, envy, or ignorance, they tried to extinguish it. Have you ever wondered why the opposition in your life felt so personal, so relentless? It's because the throne you're destined for isn't given by man, it's secured by God. Joseph's story in the Bible offers a profound example of this. His brothers, consumed by jealousy over the favor and vision God had given him, plotted against him. They threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, and thought they had ended his story. But what they didn't understand was that their betrayal wasn't a roadblock, it was part of God's divine plan. Each act of harm only moved Joseph closer to his destiny. When Joseph rose to power in Egypt, it wasn't just about vindication, it was about purpose. Joseph declared, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Genesis 50:20. Have you considered that the betrayals you faced were part of a similar divine setup? That every attack, every scheme, was positioning you closer to the place God has prepared for you? Think about the opposition you faced. Maybe it was a colleague who undermined your efforts, a friend who betrayed your trust, or even a loved one who doubted your worth. Their actions hurt, didn't they? But here's the truth. Their schemes were powerless to derail God's plan for your life. What they didn't understand is this: the throne you are destined for isn't up for grabs. It's not given by human hands, nor can it be taken by human effort. It's upheld by divine authority. The plans of the Lord stand firm forever, the purposes of his heart through all generations. Psalm 33:11. Have you ever stopped to reflect on how every setback, every attack, was ultimately powerless against God's unshakable purpose? Just like Joseph, you faced opposition from those who thought they could outmaneuver God's plan. They thought their betrayal would bury you, but all it did was plant you deeper into the soil of God's purpose, preparing you for the rise ahead. And when you rise, it won't just be about your vindication, it will be about fulfilling a mission far greater than yourself. Just as Joseph was placed in a position to save the very people who tried to destroy him, you are being prepared to walk in a purpose that transcends the pain you've endured. So, have you begun to see the divine pattern in your story? The times when others' attempts to discredit you only serve to highlight your strength. The moments when betrayal didn't break you but refined you. No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. Isaiah 54:17. Your trials weren't the end of your story. They were the beginning of a transformation. Now is the time to claim the throne that was always yours. Not because of your effort or ambition, but because of his grace and plan. The opposition you faced is proof of the power you carry. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat. Do you see now that your story, like Joseph's, is part of something far greater than you imagined? The throne isn't just a symbol of victory. It's a testament to God's unshakable purpose for your life. Will you step into this calling with boldness, knowing that no force on earth can overturn what God has written? Look back on your journey for a moment. Do you see it now? The moments when others plotted against you, the whispers behind your back, the attempts to knock you down, they weren't signs of your weakness. They were proof of your strength. Have you ever wondered why the attacks against you felt so relentless, so personal? It's because the enemy doesn't waste energy on someone without purpose. Every battle you've faced was evidence of the throne waiting for you. They may have tried to take your place, but they underestimated one unshakable truth. No one can take what God has set apart for his chosen. Think about how God has always protected his anointed, even in the face of relentless opposition. When David was anointed as king, Saul, consumed with jealousy, sought to destroy him. David spent years fleeing from Saul's wrath, living in caves and enduring hardship. Have you ever felt like David, chased, misunderstood, or pushed into hiding by those who couldn't accept your calling? Yet even in the wilderness, God's hand never left David. His throne was never in jeopardy because it wasn't Saul's to give or take. It belonged to David by divine decree. And just as God protected David, he has been protecting you all along. The same truth applies to your life. Every attack you faced, no matter how fierce, could never touch what God has ordained for you. Do you see how his shield of protection surrounded you, ensuring that every plot against you would ultimately fail? It's easy to feel weary when the battles seem endless, isn't it? To question why God allows the opposition when he could just clear the path. But could it be that every challenge, every betrayal, and every lie was preparing you for something greater? Could it be that God was using those very trials to sharpen your discernment, strengthen your resolve, and deepen your dependence on Him? Consider this. When Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and later imprisoned, it must have felt like his dream was shattered. Yet, each setback positioned him closer to the purpose God had for him. Joseph said, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Genesis 50:20. Have you stopped to reflect on how the challenges you faced might have been part of a greater plan to prepare you for your throne? Your rise isn't just about reaching the throne, it's about enduring everything that tried to stop you from getting there. Like David, the hardship and uncertainty you've faced have made you into a leader who can stand firm, unshaken by the storms around you. God didn't clear your path to make it easy. He fortified you along the way. The jealousy, the betrayal, the lies, they were all tools in His hand to mold you into the kind of person who could carry the weight of the calling on your life. Now, as you stand where God has placed you, those who doubted you, betrayed you, or tried to take what was never theirs will have no choice but to acknowledge His hand on your life. What they tried to take, God has multiplied. What they meant to destroy, He has rebuilt stronger than before. No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. Isaiah 54:17. Have you noticed how the very things meant to harm you only pushed you closer to God's plan? Your throne isn't a reward for surviving. It's a testament to God's sovereignty. It's a symbol of His ability to turn every attack into an opportunity for greater glory. Those who tried to stop you will now see that their efforts were futile from the start. The Lord foils the plans of the nations. He thwarts the purposes of the peoples. But the plans of the Lord stand firm forever, the purposes of His heart through all generations. Psalm 33:10 and 11. Can you feel the weight of that truth? That your destiny was never in their hands, but in His. The throne is yours, not because of who you are, but because of who He is. And no one, not the jealous, the envious, or the deceitful, can take away what God has promised. Their schemes, no matter how calculated, were powerless against the divine decree that has secured your place. Are you ready to embrace this truth fully? To step into your throne with the confidence that it was always yours, not by human effort, but by God's unshakable authority? This is your moment. Claim it boldly, for it was written by His hand. Now, chosen one, have you felt the weight of the battles meant to prepare you, the trials that shaped you, the moments that tested your faith? Can you now see how they were all preparing you for this calling? Take a moment to declare your testimony boldly. No one can take what God has given me. Stand firm in this truth, for your journey has not been without purpose. And if you feel moved, reach out to one of your brothers or sisters in Christ. Acknowledge them as part of this divine tribe, for we are all walking this path together. The throne you now stand before isn't just a position of power, it's a place of immense responsibility. Have you considered why God chose you for this role? Leadership in God's kingdom isn't about comfort or personal gain, it's about mission. It's both an honor and a burden, a call to serve with humility and purpose. To sit on the throne as one of God's chosen is to carry the weight of others' hopes, battles, and destinies. Have you reflected on how your leadership impacts not just you, but the lives of those who look to you for guidance and strength? The throne is more than a symbol of authority. It's a vantage point. From this position, you can see what others cannot, the needs, the struggles, and the brokenness of those God has called you to lead. Have you felt the gravity of this perspective? While the world might view leadership as a privilege, God sees it as a service. Think about Joseph, who rose to power in Egypt. His leadership wasn't about ruling for personal gain. It was about providing for others in a time of desperate need. Joseph used his position to save not only his family, but an entire nation from famine. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Genesis 50:20. Could it be that your calling, like Joseph's, is to use what you've been given to ensure the survival and flourishing of others? Leadership isn't just about the throne you sit on. It's about the lives you're destined to impact. The weight of leadership often includes challenges that others can't always see. Have you ever felt the pressure of late nights filled with doubt, the relentless demands of responsibility, or the constant scrutiny of others? These struggles are part of the unseen cost of leadership. But remember, these trials aren't meant to break you. They're meant to refine you. Consider Esther, who stood at a pivotal moment in history. Her position as queen wasn't just a title, it was a mission. When the time came to act, she risked everything to stand before the king and plead for her people. Esther's courage wasn't born from her royal status. It was born from her trust in God's purpose. "If I perish, I perish," she declared, Esther 4:16. Have you thought about the moments where your obedience might require great personal cost? Are you prepared to rise to the challenge, knowing that God's strength will sustain you? The truth is, your journey to the throne wasn't just for you. Every battle you've fought, every tear you've shed, and every victory you've claimed has been preparing you for this moment, not to rule, but to serve. The weight of the throne is heavy, but so is the grace God provides to carry it. But he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12:9. Do you feel that grace now, strengthening you for the path ahead? God has equipped you with everything you need to fulfill this mission. Like Esther, like Joseph, you've been placed here for such a time as this. The cost of leadership may feel overwhelming, but the impact of your obedience will ripple far beyond what you can see. The question now is, will you embrace the call? Will you lead not for yourself, but for the purpose God has entrusted to you? This is your moment to step into the fullness of your calling, knowing that His strength will sustain you every step of the way. Being chosen by God is a profound honor, but it doesn't guarantee an easy road. Have you noticed how the calling often comes with challenges that feel insurmountable? The path to the throne is marked by opposition and adversity. You'll encounter enemies who question your authority, doubters who challenge your decisions, and even allies who misunderstand your mission. Does that sound familiar? Take heart, you're not alone in this. God's chosen leaders have always faced resistance. Think of David. Even after being anointed as king, he endured years of conflict, betrayal, and hardship. Yet through it all, David trusted in God's promise, knowing it was greater than any obstacle before him. Your journey will require the same resilience. The throne isn't a place for the faint of heart. It's for those willing to trust God through every storm. Have you reflected on how every trial you've faced has been preparing you for this moment? Leadership in God's kingdom isn't about power or control. It's a sacred calling. It requires you to lead with compassion, humility, and wisdom. The weight of the throne is heavy because it's not just about you. It's about lifting others, carrying their burdens, and advocating for their needs. Are you ready to embrace the immense responsibility that comes with this honor? Consider Moses, who stood before Pharaoh on behalf of the Israelites. He wasn't a man of great confidence or eloquence. In fact, Moses doubted his ability to lead. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" he asked, Exodus 3:11. Yet God reassured him, saying, "I will be with you," Exodus 3:12. Have you ever felt like Moses, unsure of your ability to lead but sensing God's call anyway? What if the very weaknesses you perceive in yourself are the reasons God chose you, so His strength could shine through? Like Moses, you are called to be an advocate and protector. Like Esther, who risked her life to save her people, you are called to act with courage in the face of uncertainty. These are not tasks you can carry alone, but the good news is you don't have to. God's presence goes with you, His strength sustains you, and His wisdom guides you. The Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you, nor forsake you. Deuteronomy 31:8. Do you feel the reassurance of His presence in your life right now? Leadership in God's kingdom demands a heart that mirrors His, one that leads not with arrogance, but with humility, not with force, but with grace. The throne is not a reward for personal ambition, it's a position of divine purpose. And the weight you feel isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of responsibility. Have you considered how every trial, every opposition, has been shaping you into the kind of leader who can carry that responsibility with strength and wisdom? Remember, God doesn't call the equipped, He equips the called. But He said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12:9. What challenges are you facing today that feel overwhelming? Could it be that those very challenges are the places where God's power will be made perfect in your life? The task ahead of you is not small, but neither is the God who has called you to it. Will you rise to this sacred calling, trusting that the one who has called you is faithful to equip you for all He has planned? The throne you've been given is not for your comfort, but for His mission. Like David, Moses, and Esther, your leadership is not about ruling, it's about serving. And though the road may be difficult, God's promise is clear. He will go with you, sustain you, and guide you every step of the way. As you carry the weight of the throne, remember this: it's not just about today. Your leadership is building something far greater, a legacy that will outlast you, inspiring future generations to step into their own divine callings. Have you considered how the choices you make now, the battles you fight, and the victories you claim will echo for years to come? This is the greater purpose of the throne: to lead in a way that glorifies God and sets others on the path He has prepared for them. Do you feel the significance of that responsibility? You didn't ask for the throne. Perhaps you didn't feel ready for its weight. But God chose you because He knows what He has placed within you. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Ephesians 2:10. He knows the strength you carry, even when you don't. He sees the leader you're becoming, even in moments of doubt. Have you paused to reflect on how His trust in you is not about your perfection, but His confidence in His own plan? The same God who called you to the throne will empower you to carry its weight. His power is made perfect in your weakness. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. So 2 Corinthians 12:9. Do you feel that grace sustaining you now? The throne is more than a symbol of leadership. It's a reflection of God's authority at work in a world desperate for His presence. Your position, chosen one, isn't about human recognition or worldly power. It's a divine platform, a space where God's sovereignty, justice, and purpose are revealed through you. Have you considered how your leadership is a declaration that God is still in control, using His chosen vessels to bring light to the darkest places? This throne isn't just for your benefit. It represents His kingdom on earth, a tangible sign of His plan, unfolding before the eyes of those who doubted. The spiritual weight of your throne goes beyond the present. It shapes the future. Your actions today are laying a foundation for generations to come. Like Joseph, who used his position to save an entire nation, your leadership is a call to create impact, not maintain power. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Genesis 50:20. What decisions are you making today that will ripple outward, transforming lives and communities? Can you see how God is using you to touch lives in ways you may not fully understand yet? But with great calling comes great accountability. The throne demands a higher standard, not perfection, but surrender. Have you considered how your leadership must align with God's will, even when the path isn't clear? Like David, whose leadership was shaped by his heart for God, you are called to lead with integrity, compassion, and unwavering faith. Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Psalm 51:10. Have you asked God to guide your heart as you carry the mantle of leadership? Your throne is a testament to God's faithfulness. Every time someone looks at you, they should see evidence of His power, grace, and plan. Do you realize that you didn't fight for this position? You were placed here by His hand, not for your glory, but for His. The Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in Him. Psalm 37:23. Have you thought about how your leadership reflects His glory to a world hungry for hope and healing? This is the weight and the privilege of being chosen. Finally, your throne is not a destination. It's a call to action. Leadership is a journey of faith, service, and purpose. You were placed here not to be served, but to serve. Jesus Himself said, "The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give His life as a ransom for many." Matthew 20:28. What does it mean for you to serve as God's chosen leader? To uplift the brokenhearted, speak truth to power, and stand firm in adversity. This throne is not an end, it's a beginning that will impact countless lives, create a legacy that points directly to Him, and inspire others to step boldly into their own divine callings. Are you ready to embrace this role fully, trusting that the one who placed you here will sustain you every step of the way? This is your moment to lead, not for your sake, but for His. Beloved chosen one, the spiritual significance of your throne is undeniable. It is a sacred appointment, a divine trust, and a powerful reminder of God's presence at work in this world. As you step forward into your calling, never forget this truth. The throne you sit on is not about you, it's about Him. Through your obedience, His light will shine, His justice will prevail, and His kingdom will be revealed. Whether your journey mirrors that of David, Moses, Esther, or Joseph, one thing is certain: your rise is no accident. It has been intricately orchestrated by a God who knew from the beginning that you were the one for this throne. Every tear you've shed, every battle you've fought, and every victory you've claimed was part of His master plan. And now, as you walk fully into this role, be assured of this: you are not alone. The God who called you to lead will equip you to thrive. He has prepared you not just for the throne, but for the lives you are destined to impact, the battles you are called to fight, and the legacy you are meant to leave behind. So, step forward boldly, chosen one. Embrace the throne that was always yours, and lead with faith, courage, and purpose. The world is watching, and God's glory will shine brightly through you. This is your moment. Trust the process, walk in your calling, and let your journey inspire others to recognize the divine purpose in their own lives. Thank you for walking with us to this point. Your presence here is a testament to your courage and faith. If this message has spoken to your spirit, we encourage you to share it with others. Like, share, or leave a comment below. Your voice has the power to inspire and uplift those who need to hear this. May God bless you abundantly. May He fill your path with wisdom, strength, and grace as you step boldly into the destiny He has prepared for you. May His light shine through you in every decision, and may his peace guard your heart in every challenge. The throne is yours because he has declared it so. Walk in faith, chosen one, and let his glory be revealed in your life. Stay blessed, stay chosen.